Tradition almost 80 years in the making. Freshmen attempting to climb the Hurton Monument in Annapolis. The monument gets a little greased up for added difficulty. Legend has it the person who places a midshipman's hat will be top in the class to make admiral.
Wow, let's see. Did they get there? I know I wouldn't. That's all I can say.
Thanks.
Outnumbered starts now.
Fox News alert, we are awaiting the arrival of South Korean President Moon any moment at the White House. His visit is coming amid growing uncertainty ahead of President Trump's planned summit next month with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith, and here today, Harris Faulkner, Town Hall editor and Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov, and joining us on the couch today is conservative commentator and editor-in-chief of CampusReform.org. Lawrence Jones is here, and he is outnumbered. Good morning.
Thanks for having me,
Good to see you. Good to have everybody together this morning.
Yeah.
A lot of news.
Tuesday. It's only Tuesday.
Right,
I know. An optimistic way of looking at the week. All right, let's get started. President Trump is set to welcome South Korean President Moon at the White House. This just 3 weeks before a planned summit between the president and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. There are growing concerns over whether the summit will actually happen. We've been hearing some harsh rhetoric from the rogue regime, and there are new questions over Kim Jong-un's commitment to denuclearization. Last night, Vice President Mike Pence telling Martha MacCallum that the administration is ready for anything and warning the North Koreans not to try and deceive President Trump.
It would be a great mistake for Kim Jong-un to think he could play Donald Trump. The truth is that President Trump has made it clear that this administration will not tolerate the regime in North Korea possessing nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles that threaten our people, that threaten the United States of America, that threaten our allies in the region.
All right, Lawrence, so does this meeting happen?
We don't know. I mean, this guy is an unpredictable character. What I will say is that this is a different president that is in the White House right now. He's not going to just get some type of Iran deal. He's going to want inspections. There's not going to be any type of self-reporting when it comes to North Korea. And so we'll see. I think the president had tough rhetoric going in. He softened it up as a negotiation tool. But no one knows what's going to happen until they actually get in that room and start negotiating things. At the end of the day, whatever deal they come up with, you still can't trust North Korea. So that's where we are.
And a lot is on this president who has, made it very clear that he wishes this to happen and that this would be a big deal for him, a big deal for the country.
Well, just to go back to real quickly whether this is going to happen, President Moon's chief of national security came out to the foreign press pool at the White House earlier today saying they are 99% sure, the South Koreans, that this is still going to move forward, and they are still talking about what is going to happen to come to the table successfully with some agreements and how to implement those agreements successfully as well, which brings up the question about what the goal of the summit is going to be. Initially, it was just a meeting to introduce each other to develop that relationship, but now it seems like they're trying to develop something they can actually put into play.
You can hear the cameras snapping there at the White House as you can see the flags flying, and the president has stepped out to receive the South Korean President Moon, who has just arrived at the White House for this meeting. And all of this is happening ahead of this planned summit, which makes this an incredibly important meeting, Harris.
Yeah, one thing that I would say, just to add to what Katie was saying, because that's so important that South Korea would still see a 99% chance. So journalists in North Korea have already begun arriving to take a look at the dismantling of what they promised would be their program. And so as you see those two men walk into the White House, I want to bring up, Sandra, which journalists weren't allowed to come into the country? South Korean. So if they still are optimistic based on the fact that North and South have kind of fallen away from that handshake that we saw them make last month and how monumental that was, if they're still optimistic, then I think that we just, as Big Law says, I call him, Lawrence, we have to wait to see what's going to happen. Nothing in the rhetoric can tell us that this won't happen.
And you just saw a few moments ago there the president greeting President Moon on the steps of the White House. And this is his President Moon's third formal summit with the United States with this president. The two have also talked by phone several times this year. So they have now gone into the White House and their discussion begins.
You have to applaud this administration, because remember, there was a period of time where this talking wasn't happening. happening. The rhetoric was so high, the tensions were so high that we weren't able to have these conversations. We don't know where it's going to go. But I'm glad that finally the heat has simmered down a little bit. We're talking this out. And who knows what Kim is going to do? He's an unpredictable character, as I said. He could be trying to string the president along this entire time and decides to pull out of the talks. We don't know. But the conversations are happening.
Jessica?
They're definitely happening. In terms of pulling out, I think that Kim Jong-un is well aware of how terrible this would be for his country if he got this far at this point, where he hasn't been since 2005, I think was the last time that we actually got to denuclearization conversations. The stakes are even higher, especially with the advanced role that China's playing in this, which is different than it has been. I am heartened to see South Korea still say 99%, which just shows how used they are to the kind of bullying and rhetoric that comes out of North Korea.
Yeah.
They're just like, no big deal. Let him say whatever he wants. We're going ahead with our plans, and he'll show up on June 12th.
Even though they wouldn't even let our own journalists in, the United States, the Russians, the Chinese are able to come in with their journalists.
The AP is good enough for me, right? We'll take whatever coverage we can get for this if it ensures lifelong safety for our nation and a unified Korea. I think the president is certainly getting his due credit here. You even saw Jimmy Carter saying that he might be up for a peace prize, and to get Jimmy Carter, who was actually mocking him at his commencement speech this weekend at Liberty University,
But
making
Jimmy
the
Carter
crowd.
is a statesman. I think there's been some people on the left that it appears to be rooting against the president. They said that
I usually see it, but I don't see it this time.
Well, they've even said that they felt like the president was being deceived. You had leaders talking about that they felt like, and this is a change because at first they thought he was being too harsh. Now he's being too soft.
But if
it does seem like that members of your own party don't want this deal to happen.
I don't think that that's true. What I think members of my party and members of the Republican Party as well, including John Bolton, who's the one that really ticked Kim Jong-un off by saying, we're not going to be mamby-pamby about this. We're going to be getting the verifications. We will be doing the inspections ourselves or whoever we want them to. It's making it clear that this is someone that you can't trust, but they will go forward with it. I actually think this has been a bipartisan moment in honor of President Trump's accomplishment.
And there was polling that showed that on the Hill, within the Democratic Party, that the president was getting a lot of support among Democrats. I mean, I talked to Garamendi of California last week, and he said, yeah, this is really positive. It may not work out, but it might not have worked out for any president.
Yeah,
right.
We just haven't seen anything like that before.
Nice in the environment that we're in. And the truth is that, look, South Korea might have some differences with the U.S. about how they approach the denuclearization of North Korea. We're seeing reports now that they might have something different in mind than the United States has in mind. But the bottom line is that North Korea is a threat to the United States of America. The President of the United States cannot allow a foreign country to continue to threaten a large population of innocent people with nuclear war, and that's exactly what Kim Jong-un has done. The other thing, too, is that Kim Jong-un continues to put on the table the South Koreans and the United States of America stopping their military exercises, which is illegal, totally legitimate under international law exercise. He's asking again for us to exchange legality with our allies in exchange for illegal threats of nuclear war. We just sent another warship to Japan, which also sends a message to North Korea that we're not playing that way. And it's the same argument they put on the table before. So it's good to move forward, understanding that North Korea lies, they mislead, but they have more to lose than we do, I think.
You know, it's interesting. One professor is quoted in this most recent article in the LA Times that Moon will naturally want to avoid any agreement that undermines South Korean interests when he engages in this meeting with the president right now. And as we know, they are now behind closed doors. We're going to get comments from them shortly, but an interesting way to know that.
One interesting note, too, that I want to talk about, because we were talking about the president, his involvement with Congress. This president said that he wants whatever they come up with to be a treaty, which is different from the past administration where they just had, when it came to the Iran, this deal that didn't go through Congress. This is going to have to go through the Senate. And I think the president having a willingness to involve members of Congress is going to be better for this deal in the long run.
Yeah, more transparency. I mean, I've had members of Congress say that, they've seen some of the side deals. Did any of it ever get repeated to? No. Right. I mean, so the transparency also for the American people is to have as many eyes on that as possible.
And it also requires that senators and people on the Hill are not only approved, but are held accountable for their actions, rather than being able to criticize something down the road without having any skin in the game.
You can.
It's very important.
You could definitely look at that with the Iran deal and also Obamacare as well. The kind of tension that comes up amongst people in Congress and the American people when they feel like no one is being held accountable for something that was kind of pushed through. And I understand Democrats voted for it, but it was not bipartisan in any way with Obamacare. So I think the president is actually learning from mistakes of prior administrations and trying to do as best as possible to at least level the blame and get as much input as possible. I think he does have those rare moments where he recognizes that he doesn't know everything about everything. And there are going to be some people who are better equipped to be advising on this.
Well, and you're very candid about where Democrats made mistakes. I think the world could see it, and so it's interesting as we move forward. Doesn't matter who's making them, we can learn from them.
All right, well, we've got a lot more coming up on this Tuesday, almost Friday.
Almost.
You know what?
Definitely Thursday.
I hope for Friday, right?
Let's get
That's
started.
optimism. All right, well, we continue to await those comments from the president as he meets with South Korean President Moon. We will bring that to you when we get them. Plus, a new effort to crack down on sanctuary cities. One GOP lawmaker introducing a bill that would punish local officials for tipping off illegal immigrants to federal immigration raids. We'll have all the details on that. Plus, President Trump meeting with the leaders of the FBI and Justice Department amid allegations federal officials spied on his campaign for political
office right now. The President of the United States and the President of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, are talking about North Korea. We're getting notes from inside their closed-door meeting. In the President's opening remarks, we know he talked about trade and, yes, North Korea and the dictator Kim Jong-un, the possibility of a summit coming up between our president and that dictator in June. So as we get more notes out of that, and then also we'll get just a moments ago look with spray tape of those two men. As that happens, we'll bring it to you live right here on Outnumbered. Keep watching.
It's all very troubling to those of us that hold the FBI in such high regard, that there are even allegations that people were assigned to surveil or even spy on our campaign. It would be very troubling to millions of Americans if that took place.
And with the words of the vice president, this is heating up. Mike Pence weighing in on allegations that an FBI informant improperly spied on the Trump campaign. Yesterday, President Trump met with Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein. They reiterated the Justice Department is committed to looking into this matter, and after weeks of back and forth, the DOJ says it will reveal new information about the Russia investigation. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders released this statement, quote, "It was agreed that White House Chief of Staff Kelly will immediately set up a meeting with the FBI, DOJ, and DNI, together with congressional leaders to review highly classified and other information which they have requested," end quote. We're now learning that meeting could happen as early as later today. We'll tell you about it as it comes together. All this as former Trump campaign aide Michael Caputo says he believes multiple informants and federal agencies were directed to infiltrate the Trump campaign. Watch.
Let me tell you something that I know for a fact. This informant, this person that they tried to plan into the campaign, he's not the only person that came at the campaign. And the FBI is not the only Obama agency that came at the campaign. I know because they came at me. And I'm looking for clearance to my attorney to reveal this to the public. This is just the beginning.
Ooh, I think he did just reveal it.
Yeah, I was curious
I think
about
he teed
that.
it up.
Yeah.
All right, teeing it up. This is a problem no matter what political party you're in.
This is a lot of shady business, and the people that are calling for a special counsel to investigate this have it wrong. There is an attorney general that has authority to investigate this. Jeff Sessions should be investigated, not because it was a presidential campaign, but the fact that they spied on Americans, violating the Constitution.
So what's the problem? Why is that not happening? And by the way, recusal from Russia investigation, the way that I believe it, I don't know that it has anything to do with this.
Yeah, I think the president is very frustrated with the way Jeff Sessions has handled this entire situation, as he has made clear throughout the past year. I don't think he's going to get rid of him, but I do think he's very frustrated. In terms of these specific spying allegations, let's go back to last year when we found out that Samantha Power, the former UN ambassador, was responsible for unmasking American citizens. You had Susan Rice, the former national security advisor for President Obama, lying, saying that she never unmasked anybody. And then when she was caught unmasking people, she said she was doing it on behalf of her country and that it was important to be doing these things for the sake of national national security. There are major questions about how the Obama administration handled the 2016 election. Barack Obama spied on reporters. Why wouldn't he spy on a political campaign when his legacy was at stake and he needed Hillary Clinton to win? In terms of the surveillance and the informants who were working, we still need to hear about who they are, what they were doing. The bottom line is a lot of this has happened under the guise of non-transparency. Congress is trying to figure out what happened, and hopefully they can relay some of that information to the American people in a way that doesn't compromise an Inspector General investigation or ongoing investigation.
And Congress is to blame too, because they gave the authority to a lot of these people through their vote to do this.
So Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida, who's part of this push as well to get that information that Katie's talking about, and is the least amount of redactions as possible, has said you can get to that information without compromising that informant. So that's been an argument from Democrats in terms of who infiltrated the campaign. But look, Jessica, if there's several people, I mean, you heard another person just there say, well, he's asking his attorneys if he can talk about it.
Right.
I mean, this
Which is
starts to get
unsubstantiated at this.
But this starts to get complicated. It's not just about that informant. So why wouldn't Democrats support finding out about what really happened?
Well, I think that now that Rod Rosenstein has said that he will look into this, that will sway how Democrats feel about it. Because
you think?
I do think so. I think the people who are being kind of honest and above board about it are saying, yes, we want to get to the bottom of all of these things, because this is a problem with an institution that doesn't just belong to one president at the time. It's now crossed over. So I think that that's important. I think it's also important to disentangle all of the threads here. You know, when you're talking about FISA abuses versus talking about Russia collusion, those are very separate things. And Hillary Clinton's emails, which is part of, the second special counsel. There are so many moving parts to the story. And I'm sure you all share my frustration every morning when you wake up and you think, I need to know everything about this. And there's so much coming at you all the time. So I think that spending time and having, Dan Coates and Christopher Wray and Rod Rosenstein fully committed to making sure that they're looking into as much as they can and releasing as much information that won't put people in danger. But what I find concerning about this is that it seems like the president is ordering for information that pertains to his own case with the Mueller investigation to be made. It is his branch, but they're supposed to be independent.
It's not.
And there are many people on both sides of the aisle.
It's not the Constitution. I'm sorry. It's his branch.
An independent DOJ. I invented that. I don't think so, Lauren.
It is his. The president is the chief executive.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should.
Well, look,
it doesn't mean that it's also illegal.
I didn't say that it was illegal. I said that
I want to bring Sandra in here. So we saw House Speaker Paul Ryan just a little while ago talk about this.
He was asked about it, right?
Yeah, and what I thought, Sandra, what was interesting about that is he asked the question, why are we just finding this out now?
Interesting. And I think people are looking for size and scope. I don't think we learned that much from the Speaker of the House when he was asked about this and commented on that earlier. But, how big of a deal is this? We're working off allegations of multiple informants targeting the Trump campaign. I mean, just how big of a deal is this?
It's a huge deal, but I keep going back to all these. Matt Gaetz is another one that voted for the reauthorization. When you give the government this power, don't be surprised when they do it. And now all these Republicans, I'm calling them out. I don't care. Yeah. They voted for this, and now they want to scream.
Senator Rand Paul tried to tell them.
He did. He was right.
FISA Section 702, I believe it is, and you, Katie, and I have talked about this a lot on the couch. When you don't drill down on this and give that much power to the government, this is what can happen. And it doesn't matter, again, which party.
And you can target the other party. This can go both ways.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Goes
all right. Both ways.
It's making news today. We're all over it. And so is this. The Democrats have a new plan to win back Congress. What? By turning the tables on the president's own vow to drain the swamp. Whether this can be a winning strategy, we're going to talk about it. Jessica Tarlov, I can't wait to get your response. Plus, a group of congressional Republicans calling for a second special counsel to look into alleged misconduct at the highest levels of the DOJ and FBI. We've been talking about this. We'll broaden out the conversation with fresh points on the debate. Is it necessary? Stay close.
We have at least 19 members of Congress who will be introducing today a 12-page House resolution detailing misconduct.
And is inside the White House meeting with the president right now. We are expecting a taped playback of that meeting, but we are getting some notes as to what is being discussed in that room. On North Korea, the president is making some news in there right now. He is refusing to say whether there are conditions for the North Korean meeting. He is taking many questions on this. John Roberts is in there, and he is letting us know what is being said. The president said he would like denuclearization of the peninsula to be all in one. Don't want to exclude other ways, but would prefer it to be all in one. He says he can guarantee Kim's safety. He will be safe. He will be happy. The president says his country will be rich. Kim will be extremely happy if it works out. In the opening remarks by the South Korean president, he started out by addressing some things happening here at home, gave condolences for the Texas school shooting, congratulated the president on getting the American detainees out of North Korea. And then he went on to say, he also says he's looking forward to the POTUS Kim Jong-un summit and calls it one step closer to peace. The president saying things are, and this is President Trump, president saying things are moving along with the North Korean summit. So these are just some of the things that are being said right now inside the White House in that meeting. We are going to get those comments for you shortly. We will turn those around and show you them when we get them. Meanwhile, Fox News alert more than a dozen House Republicans introducing a resolution that calls for a second special counsel to investigate alleged misconduct at the FBI and the Justice Department. The resolution focuses on three areas: the ending of the investigation into Hillary Clinton's personal email server, the progress of the Trump-Russia probe from its origins through the appointment of Robert Mueller, and alleged FISA abuses. Here are some of the lawmakers behind the resolution.
In just the past few days, we learned that the DOJ, FBI, or both, appear to have planted at least one person into Donald Trump's presidential campaign to infiltrate and surveil the campaign.
So it's time that we get to the facts. It's time that we appoint a second special counsel.
If this fact pattern doesn't warrant a second special counsel, somebody tell me what does.
All of this comes as the Justice Department has asked its internal watchdog to investigate whether the FBI or DOJ infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes. Lawrence Jones, shaking your head.
I'm so sick and tired of special counsel after special counsel, request for a special counsel. It seems like the only person in the Department of Justice doing that is doing their job is the Inspector General. I mean, seriously, he's the only one that can complete investigations, give people information about the investigation, go after people, but he can't prosecute anyone.
Right.
And so, look, this has nothing to do with Russia. So. I don't know what the Attorney General is going to do. He's going to recuse himself of this.
Let's walk back a little bit and talk about why these Republicans have called for a special counsel now, which is bolstered by these new spying accusations. And in the past, they say, look, the Inspector General is respected. He's important. He produces enormous value in terms of shedding sunlight in dark areas within the government. However, he doesn't have jurisdiction outside of the Justice Department. So he cannot talk to political appointees under the Obama administration who have left after President Trump came in, and he cannot talk to people who are no longer working for the Department of Justice, which limits the amount of scope that he has to actually get to the bottom of this. Also, as you said, he doesn't have the ability to prosecute anybody. However, he does have the ability to refer people for prosecution to the U.S. Attorney, which he has done before.
Just like Robert Mueller has done.
Exactly.
With,
so
it's
a jurisdiction issue about who can be interviewed, which is why they're asking for a special counsel.
So politically speaking, though, what I hear you saying, Lawrence, is wouldn't this Attorney General do well for himself to do what he can do? I mean, you can wait for a second special counsel and you can do all of that, but there are some things that Sessions can do at this point. On this issue, on the Hillary Clinton issue, looking at how things maybe were favored or unfair in her favor in the investigation into her secret server. I mean, he can do what he can do regardless of his recusal from the Russia investigation. Why not do it?
Exactly. And I'm not even just talking about I'm talking about legally. Americans being spied on, abuse going on. It doesn't mean that the Attorney General have to come to a conclusion immediately before the investigation starts. He can appoint a U.S. attorney. He can appoint a deputy attorney general to oversee an investigation, find a conclusion of the investigation, send it over to Congress. He can do what he can do. So why is he runs the Department of Justice. We're not asking him to come to a conclusion.
He's not doing it because the Inspector General currently is about to release this investigation that he is finishing about the Hillary Clinton investigation. So their argument is
on that side of it.
Right. Yes. They're saying, look, we're going to wait for that report to come out. and then we will decide. He could be, right. But they would argue, and they have argued, that we're waiting for that report for recommendations, and then we will move forward depending on how serious the results of that investigation are.
I'm just struck by the list of topics that are included in the need for this special counsel. So you have the origins of the Mueller investigation, which is something that I know ticks off a lot of people on the right. You have that. Then you have the FISA abuses, which seems to be what you are primarily concerned with and a lot of libertarians are focused on. And then suddenly Hillary Clinton is thrown in there again. And we've also completely glossed over the conversation that we should be having about the effect of the FBI on Hillary Clinton's run for president. Donald Trump is all up in arms about what happened to him, but we know that Jim Comey coming out 11 days before that election and saying, oh, there are more emails, and then
isn't that Anthony Weiner's fault though for having the emails on his computer?
Oh, but it's
whose responsibility is that?
The FBI was very concerned with making sure that the Trump campaign wasn't being treated unfairly. They've made that perfectly clear. We didn't want to come out and we didn't want to say we were doing an investigation, but we have no problem coming out and saying that Anthony Weiner has emails on Huma Abedin's laptop. Oh, wait, actually, we're not going to do anything about it. Sorry that we just took up 4 news cycles and hurt her chances. I'm not saying she was a perfect candidate.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm saying it did hurt her.
She needed to tap into you for a chapter for her book about what happened. Because she's confused. She said yesterday she can't let it go.
No, I don't think. Are you over it yet?
I can't let it go.
I am over that. I have accepted my fate as,
She's not over
Trump
it.
is my president.
Any responsibility for her?
Are you guys kidding? I'm just saying with the second special counsel.
What I understand is that you just put something extra on the special counsel's list that you would like also to be looked at.
No, I don't want a second special counsel. And for people to say that a special counsel in the first place is a waste of time, which a number of Republicans have, how can you then be wanting a second one? It's completely hypocritical.
I agree with that.
Well, we got
so
agreement.
much. For wanting to talk just about kitchen table issues, Democrats plan to hammer the corruption allegations swirling around the Trump administration in the run-up to the midterm elections, hoping to tap into a successful strategy that delivered them control of Congress in 2006. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, rolling out the latest plank of their messaging war on the steps of Capitol Hill. Watch.
President Trump has embraced the most egregious establishment Republican norms and appointed the most conflict of interest-ridden cabinet in my lifetime. The swamp has never been more foul or more fetid than under this president.
Instead of delivering on his promise to drain the swamp, President Trump has become the swamp. We want Republicans and their corrupt, big donor-driven agenda to get out of the way. It has given the American people a raw deal.
The anti-corruption plank, just one arm of the Democrats' broader messaging plan, which they call, quote, better deal. They first unveiled the plan last summer, but had largely focused on economic ideas, which is why my brain was breaking. Why not the economy? Lawrence?
Bad move, but Jessica's party. If you, it's your party.
Yes.
It's not all Jessica.
There are more of me.
This is why they lost before. They focus on things that Americans don't care about. They focus on identity politics. Now it's anti-Trump, that somehow he's corrupt, Russia, all that stuff that Americans literally don't care about. They care about they're living paycheck to paycheck.
So, Sandra, there are some bright spots in this economy that maybe Democrats don't want to talk about. I don't know. It's just a question.
Well, yeah, they probably don't want to talk about the fact that this president is following through on creating jobs and bringing growth to the country as far as GDP. And there's hard evidence that things are shaping up and things are improving for the American people when it comes to the economy. That being said, I mean, isn't this just further anti-Trump message to drain the swamp? Isn't that the messaging that didn't work for them before? And to say that they're going to have a better plan come the midterms, shouldn't there be a plan in place now? I mean, it's going to be crunch time here soon.
Well, I thought that there was one in place, which was a better deal and focusing on economic issues and also healthcare, which is an economic issue.
What's the economic focus? What is the message there?
Well, what they were talking about, making sure that the country works for everybody, for middle and lower income Americans, obviously focusing on income inequality. What does that mean?
Because
that means not giving tax cuts to corporations and giving bigger tax. But if you're just going to say, "Oh, I'm just telling you," that's what it means. Do I believe that's what the message was?
No,
I do believe.
Do you believe in that message?
Oh, I believe in larger individual tax cuts rather than corporate tax cuts. Yeah, I don't believe that trickle down works.
Okay,
I believe that this benefits people at the top, that it benefits corporations,
and it benefits
Donald
people that got bonuses and got more of their money in their paycheck.
I want to press in with something that Jessica said, though, because I almost heard a but coming. I thought that it was about the economy, but actually it's not.
No, it definitely is about the economy first and foremost. What they are trying to do here is actually to get away from saying Russia, 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 and to focus on corruption, which, as you pointed out,
from coercion to corruption.
In 2006, it worked.
C word.
It worked for
If Democrats are really concerned about corruption, they would be for smaller government, because bigger the government, the more corruption is bred, especially in Washington, D.C. I find it interesting that Democrats are now stealing the slogans of President Trump to try and win back maybe some of those blue dog Democrats who voted for Trump. You know, a better deal. Who talks about deals all the time? President Trump. You know, talking about a better deal for America. All those things, making a deal great again. I mean, all these things that they're talking about. Like, wow, come up with something original, right? But the thing is that if they can't talk about the economy because the economy is going well, unemployment is down to levels we haven't seen in a few decades. Manufacturing is up. Regulations. The administration has stripped more regulations than they promised to do, which is enabling companies to build more, to do more. They don't feel like there's a wet blanket over the economy like they've felt for almost a decade now. So Democrats have to go to another place, because talking about the economy only gives credit to the person.
I think I heard somebody say this morning. Are they going to steal the build the wall?
Definitely not. We will have no walls.
I just wonder if there's some room someplace where they're like, okay, C, collusion, C, corruption. How about C, cash, the economy, right? Where do they go? Oh, okay, we'll move on. A new twist in the battle over Sanctuary City. Speaking of the wall, did you know that was coming up? She did. Now, Iowa Congressman Steve King is introducing a bill that threatens jail time for sanctuary mayors, like Oakland's Libby Schaaf, who warned her residents of immigration raids. Is it time to hold sanctuary officials accountable legally, or does this legislation go too far? Stay with us.
And South Korean President Moon Jae-in are in the White House right now in what is turning out to be a very lengthy conversation. The president responding to many questions on the planned summit with North Korea and Kim Jong-un. He says, quote, things are moving along with the North Korean summit. He refused to say whether there are conditions for that North Korean meeting. He says that he would like denuclearization of the peninsula to be all in one, doesn't want to exclude other ways, but would prefer it be done all in one. He then takes a question on Christopher Wray and Rod Rosenstein, and of course the news of the day, saying that if they spied on the campaign, it is a, quote, disgrace to the country and would make every other political incident look small and would be unprecedented. So the president is making quite a bit of news there as he continues his conversation with the South Korean president on this planned summit, and really putting out there, as I open this up to the couch for a second, that this meeting might not happen in June. Lawrence Jones.
I mean, we should have assumed that when these conversations first started, because like I said at the beginning of the show, Kim is so unpredictable. But again, this is a fluid situation. This is why part of my problem is that I hate that we're having this negotiation between Donald Trump, Kim Jong-un, and the press, because there's so many moving parts. There's back and forth. There's China,
there's also propaganda mixed in too. Look, don't miss it. Kim Jong-un waited until the date was set and the location to set for him to say, well, you know what, maybe I'm not going to celebrate dismantling my nukes, and maybe I'm not going to denuclearize. And you can't tell me that that man doesn't understand what the meaning of that word is.
So while he refuses to say whether there are conditions for this North Korean meeting, Katie, and as I said, he would like the denuclearization of the peninsula to, quote, be all in one. He says he can guarantee Kim's safety. He will be safe. He will be happy. His country will be rich. Kim will be extremely happy, he says, if it works out.
So they are trying to reassure Kim Jong-un that he will be able to preserve his regime even if the North Koreans denuclearize. Because Kim Jong-un's entire premise about his negotiations require that he keep his nuclear weapons with the ability to preserve his regime. And he has looked at things that have happened around the world over the last 10 years. He looked at John Bolton's comments. John Bolton's comments about Gaddafi certainly made it that, you know, so he took a second look at that. The president is trying to reassure him that, look, even if you denuclearize, the United States will be there to make sure that you do not get murdered in the streets.
Right, exactly. This is a country that offs its own.
Right.
So, I mean,
they might off him after
he's got
the way that
propaganda.
he's
He's got people to answer to as well. So you may see some of this rhetoric floated out for that very reason.
I want to get a few more of the details out here, Jessica. The president also saying this on the summit. We're moving along. We'll see what happens. If it doesn't happen, maybe it will happen later.
Right.
You never know about deals. I've made a lot of deals. You never really know. It may not work out for June 12th. And then he told reporters, you'll know soon.
Can I add this, and forgive me if you touched on this, Sandra, and I didn't catch it, but also from the pool, who today is Fox News and John Roberts, when the president was asked if he was pleased with how trade talks were going with China, he said no. According to John, he says, then the president insinuated that Xi of China may have tried to move Kim Jong-un away from the summit. Moon also answered questions. He says he's very much aware that they are skeptical views about the success of the summit and whether the North Koreans will denuclearize, but we should not think it will fail just because past attempts have failed.
All right, and just a heads up, the tape is out. We're waiting on that. We're going to play this back to you when we get it. So that should be happening.
Not in our voices.
Yeah.
Which has been kind of fun.
But Lawrence, I mean, that's
exactly
more crucial. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was saying. There are other players to this negotiation. China with this whole trade thing. Now we hear that they may have been using that.
Back channel.
The sanctioning of North Korea. China has been sending oil on ships and then denied that they were doing it. So they have a stake in this as well.
Definitely, if Trish was here with us, she would be saying China, China, China. China is the key to all of this. So I'll do it for her. China, China, China. China is the key to all of this. And that hearing that they were cheating and doing that certainly shows what kind of control they have over that country and how Kim Jong-un certainly feels
want to have control over that
I think
country.
have.
Well,
I mean, this is a country that doesn't produce anything for themselves, and it's not like Japan or South Korea is going to be sending them a gift basket.
Well,
so
China does
listen
not
to what
have
the
an
president is
interest in the
saying. He
US
said
having
you
more
will be
military
rich
presence.
if you come to the table.
Yeah.
I mean, think about China for a second. Wait, the Americans are going to come to the table and they're going to satisfy North Korea's financial needs. Where does that leave China,
it's good for China.
It
It's good for China because China has always worried about North Korean refugees flooding into China, having that be an economic burden for them. It's actually helpful for China for Secretary Pompeo to go on Fox News Sunday and say, we are willing to put in 15% of North Korea's GDP or what he said about the economy, because that takes China off the hook for the responsibility of North Korea. However, the military side of this is that China has no interest in having the United States and South Korea having more prevalent military power on the Korean Peninsula. That is not something that China wants.
You also have to add to that Japan, which we don't talk about as a huge factor in all this, but certainly is an enormous regional
Well, we
power.
do. We haven't talked about it today.
No, right. In this conversation that we're having right now about the summit with
North
the South
Korea
Korean
shooting
president,
missiles over China,
exactly,
over Japan,
all of the time.
So it's interesting because this has sort of been the strategy on the part of the president, right? To say, okay, he's confirming things are moving along. He sounds optimistic almost that this meeting will happen.
He's optimistic but cautious.
But cautious and almost
indifferent.
Almost trying, indifferent and saying, you know what, this could fall through at any moment.
Art of the deal. I mean, if you read the book, then you realize that is what Trump is doing right now. I think we have a tendency. I think Americans and members of the press have a tendency to just freak out. Oh, the deal is getting ready to be done, and in fact, it's a part of the negotiation. It's different. It's not typical for what we're used to as Americans because we've had politicians in chief. Well, now you have a businessman.
And less transparency, quite frankly.
Right.
I mean, maybe some deal making was going on, but we didn't even learn about the Obama letters to the leadership in Iran until far after they had
the cash was already
the White
gone.
House has been clear
look at
that
the time, how long these men have been meeting.
I mean, you're talking about almost the entire hour because Moon Jae-in was greeted by the president on the steps of the White House at the top of this hour. We're being told it's going to be about 35 minutes. That's a lot of time to make news and to change this story. We're getting a lot of the words that are being exchanged by these two world leaders, but this is a key, as you said earlier, Harris, high stakes meeting.
Yeah, it is. Jessica, I'm curious what Democrats are going to be saying on the Hill after this, because we are learning, as Sandra was saying, so much about the relationship building that this president has been doing. You don't spend that kind of time with somebody unless you've been working on some stuff. And the components of the summit coming together when the North and South now have decided they're not going to talk to each other officially right now because of the military exercises. So we understand through rhetoric and propaganda, but yeah, they're in there.
they're definitely in there. They definitely have built a solid relationship, and this is something that people who do oppose the president have had to contend with. Also, a relationship with French President Macron, for instance, where people thought, oh no, there's no way he's going to like him. He's our climate change guy, and they actually have one of the best relationships, if not the best relationship that there is out there. I think that it's important that everybody on both sides of the aisle, but especially Democrats, act with restraint about things like this, because you're dealing with unpredictable actors. Sorry, my English failed me. So you definitely don't know what Kim Jong-un is going to. Yeah, but to the rest of you, I meant unpredictable. You're dealing with Kim Jong-un. We have no idea what he's going to do here, and also a president who knows if it doesn't happen June 12th, maybe it'll happen mid-July, maybe it'll happen August. It doesn't really matter to him as long as he gets it done and on the terms that he wants.
And there's been 25 years of. I don't know if you'd say completely failed, but certainly constipated.
And not because of the United States,
sanctions.
but because
so now you have something different. So what are a few weeks to get it?
Right, and we've had those failures not because of the United States, but because of North Korea continually coming to the table and putting
firing missiles,
and threatening us with nuclear war. That is the reason why we're at this point and why we're going to have to move forward, summit or not, in dealing with North Korea.
We're close.
All right, so the president right now is behind closed doors, meeting with the South Korean president, a big meeting in which the two are clearly discussing the future of those talks with North Korea. That summit scheduled for June 12th in Singapore. At times, the words exchanged by these two leaders, we're told moments ago, the meeting seems it's being called into question and in doubt at certain points. We'll see what the president says, although he says that things are moving along with those discussions. This is Moon Jae-in's third formal visit with the president. Let's listen.
It's a great honor to have President Moon of South Korea with us. We've become great friends over the years, and it's now we've now known each other for quite some time. We're working on many things. Obviously, North Korea is the big one. No matter how big trade is, North Korea, in this case, is the big one. And we'll be discussing that. We'll also be discussing trade. We have a very big trade arrangement that we're renegotiating right now with South Korea. They've been excellent people to work with for the Trump administration. And we will have some pretty good news, I think, on trade. And we'll be discussing other things. But the big topic will be Singapore and the meeting, see what happens, whether or not it happens. If it does, that'll be great. It'll be a great thing for North Korea. And if it doesn't, that's okay, too. Whatever it is, it is. But I look forward to spending quite a bit of time with the president, and I think a lot of good things will happen. I want to thank everybody for being here. Mr. President, great honor. Thank you. Thank you.
부단이라고 합니다. 오늘 문 대통령님을 백악관에 환영하게 되어서 매우 기쁘게 생각합니다. 문 대통령과 나는 지금 오래 또 알아왔고 아주 좋은 친구가 되었습니다. 우리는 여러 가지 문제에 있어서 협력을 하고 있습니다. 물론 북한 문제가 가장 큰 협력 의제입니다. 그 외에도 한국과의 무역도 논의할 것입니다. 한국과의 무역은 지금 재협상 중에 있고 지금 아주 훌륭한 협상 상대국으로서 협상이 잘 진행되고 있는 중이며 곧 좋은 소식이 있을 것 같습니다. 물론 아주 중요한 싱가포르 회담에 대해서도 논의를 할 것입니다. 싱가포르 회담이 열릴지 안 열릴지는 두고 봐야 될 것입니다. 만일 그것이 열린다면은 아주 좋은 일이 될 것이고 또 북한에도 아주 좋은 일이 될 것입니다. 만일 열리지 않는다면 그것도 괜찮다고 봅니다. 문 대통령께 여러 가지 협력에 대해서 감사드리고 또 오늘 좋은 회담이 되기를 바랍니다.
예, 감사합니다. 국내 일정이 매우 바쁘고 또 북미 정상회담을 앞둔 중요한 시기에 이렇게 많은 시간 내주시고 또 따뜻하게 환대해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 먼저 며칠 전 텍사스 고등학교에서 벌어진 총격 사건으로 무고한 희생자들이 발생한 것에 대해서 우리 트럼프 대통령님과 또 미국 국민들께 위로의 말씀을 드립니다. 또한 미국민 억류자들이 북한으로부터 무사하게 귀환한 것에 대해서 다시 한번 축하합니다. 힘을 통한 평화라는 트럼프 대통령님의 강력한 비전과 리더십 덕분에 사상 최초의 북미 정상회담이 열리게 되었고 한반도의 완전한 비핵화와 세계 평화라는 꿈에 성큼 다가설 수 있게 되었습니다. 바로 트럼프 대통령이시기 때문에 지난 수십 년간 아무도 해내지 못했던 일을 바로 트럼프 대통령께서 해내시리라고 저는 확신합니다. 우리 한국과 한반도의 운명과 미래에도 대단히 중요한 일이기 때문에 저도 최선을 다해서 북미 정상회담의 성공을 돕고 또 트럼프 대통령과 언제까지나 함께 할 것이라는 것을 약속드립니다. 감사합니다.
Well, I would like to thank you, Mr. President, for your warm hospitality and for sharing much of your time with me. I know you have a very busy domestic calendar, as well as the all-important US-North Korea summit approaching. I heard the tragic news that many innocent lives were lost due to the shootings in a Texas high school a few days ago. So I'd like to convey my condolences to you and the American people. On a brighter note, I'd like to congratulate you for the safe return of the American citizens who had been detained in North Korea. Thanks to your vision of achieving peace through strength, as well as your strong leadership, we are looking forward to the first ever US-North Korea summit, and we find ourselves standing one step closer to the dream of achieving complete denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula and world peace. All this was possible because of you, Mr. President, and I have no doubt that you will be able to accomplish a historic feat that no one had been able to achieve in the decades past. I have to say that the fate and the future of the Korean Peninsula hinge on this, and as such, I'll spare no effort to the end to support the success of the upcoming US-North Korea summit and stand with you all along the way, Mr. President.